Welcome back everybody to episode 17 of What the Devil. Today I'm joined by Isaac, United Cloud, back once again. We're going to be previewing the FA Cup final, which, to be perfectly honest, I'm quite nervous about. We're talking about Mauricio Pochettino. We've got a little game lined up about quotes. Make sure you stick to find out more about what that's about. Remember to listen on Spotify and or Apple Podcasts if you're on the go. You can't watch a YouTube video. Apart from that, FA Cup final, Isaac. Weird to think that we've actually got to this point, considering how tragic the season's been. Ten Hag's record of getting to finals, still pretty all right. You know, back-to-back FA Cup finals, again against Manchester City. Obviously the Carabao Cup, we got knocked out, all of that. But kind of this season aside, which has been pretty dismal, how are you feeling ahead of the game?
I mean, I'm obviously nervous. I think we're all very nervous. I was lucky enough to get a ticket, so that's exciting, and I'm looking forward to going with my brother and making a good day of it. But yeah, I can't pretend that I'm confident that we're going to get anything. Although I do have to say, I don't think City have been perfect in recent weeks, and I think we've got a few players back, and that does give me a little bit of hope. But maybe that's just being slightly delusional. But it is a cup final. Anything can happen.
It's a cup final. Anything can happen. I was watching the Gary Neville podcast the other day, and I've just been reading what some ex-players have said and everything like that.
Yeah.
And some of them are like a little bit optimistic. Like Zaha said that he thinks it's going to be 2-2 draw, and then United win on penalties. There's been other players, obviously, who said other stuff. Some people think we're going to get trounced. Some people are saying, it's the magic of the FA Cup. Anything can happen. United, definitely underdogs.
Yeah.
We're definitely underdogs.
I mean, like, we were underdogs in the game against Liverpool, and we won 4-3 with Amad Diallo's magic. So
I can't take another game like that.
No.
I cannot take another.
But imagine if it was penalties. That'd be even worse.
Well, I don't. Yeah, well, yeah, obviously, because then if it's penalties, you don't win in 120 minutes or anything.
Yeah.
Whereas a Liverpool kind of game, you would. But I'm sick of 4-3s, man. After the 4-3 win, the 4-3 loss against Chelsea, all of that, I can't.
Yeah.
The more I think about this final, genuinely, the more I just I have no idea what's going to happen, which it fills me with confidence. I don't know what's going to happen. You never know. But then B, it's Man City. And we played them last season. I'm still slightly scarred from last season, but there's no Gundogan, there's no David De Gea. And as you said just earlier, there are players coming back. Varane played half an hour. Martinez has played 80, 90 minutes of football since his return. Lindelof's back in training. Absolutely no idea on Harry Maguire because he's still got a calf problem and he's probably got one eye on the Euros. So I wanted to kind of talk about Erik ten Hag's, the issues he has ahead of the FA Cup final. I think his biggest problem is who he should play in defence. So obviously Casemiro, very much hoping he won't play there. He definitely won't play there after the 7 games in a row of just disaster.
Chaos.
But there's an interesting balance that Ten Hag has to deal with in that obviously Leacher and Varane are United's 2 best centre-backs. That's the best centre-back pairing. Varane is heading off. So kind of on the one hand, you think he's not played very many minutes?
Very many, yeah.
Is that it?
We'll get
there.
I
don't know. We'll get there. He's not played a lot of minutes. I'll just go with that. And he's not going to be playing for United again for the full-time whistle. So part of me just kind of thinking we should just chuck Varane on, even though there's a certain lack of match fitness there. But on the other hand, do you want to play who's played 30 minutes in the last 4 or 5 weeks of a game? Throw him into the FA Cup final, and then on the flip side again, Varane is one of the serial winner, 5 Champions Leagues, all of that. He knows exactly what to do in a final.
Yeah.
And then your other options are a Lindelof who's not played any minutes, or then suddenly it's Johnny Evans. I mean, this is on the assumption that Sandro Martinez will play. It feels like a dead cert that he will.
Yeah.
But
or it's Casemiro again.
It can't be. It can't be Casemiro again. I really hope not. But yeah, it's just I keep going round and round and round and round in my head about it. Like, who should start? Basically, who should start alongside Lisandro Martinez?
Yeah, I mean, I do think there is a big Casemiro-shaped question mark hole in this United, in Ten Hag's approach to the game, because he could use Casemiro there still, although we don't want to see it. And we can't rule out the fact that Casemiro might start midfield. And we've got Sofiane Amrabat, who's played pretty well in this sort of end-of-season run-in, also looking for a place in the team. So I think the Casemiro question is huge, because if he does, against Brighton, he has some really big interventions as well. We can't forget that. I know it was probably his best game in a while, but he is so chaotic. I do think that there's more questions than answers with Casemiro, and that even relates to his future as well after this game. It could be the last time he ever plays for Manchester United. So I think there's definitely, like, what does he do with Casemiro in this game is one of the biggest questions. Like you said with Varane, serial winner, is that something that comes into the selection? I don't know. But for me, I think I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if he did stick with Casemiro. And if he goes, because
centre back?
Yeah, just because Varane's like, look, again, intangibles on this level, very important. Like, the guy knows what he's doing in games like this. It's something that he's got more experience than anyone else in our squad with games of this caliber. So, Varane Martinez, we know how good a partnership that can be. Is he fit? I don't think he is. So it's a bit of a gamble. As you say, long term, not much for us to worry about because we don't even know where he's going next. It might be the case that he's not got to play for France in the summer, so he might just go to Lens or he might go to Saudi or something like that. He's probably not going to have to worry too much about his long-term future after this game. Maybe you just give Varane a go, burn him out. But for me, I would not be surprised if just for the simple continuity, if he sticks with Casemiro, another chaotic game at Wembley. I mean, I was at the semi-final. I thought that for the first 35 minutes, Casemiro at centre-back looked like he was slightly withdrawn. It was like he wasn't facing the play. He wasn't facing away from the play. Everything was a little bit more sort of in front of him and controlled, and he had a bit more sort of expression in what he could do, but then it went to chaos. And I'm worried that will happen again. And he is someone who has had such a chaotic season. I can't use that word enough to describe Casemiro. But I wouldn't be surprised if he goes Casemiro, Amrabat, Mainu, Fernandes. I mean, he's got Mount back as well.
What is in Casemiro at centre-back, then Amrabat a bit ahead of him?
Yeah, and almost like having Dalot at left-back coming in, Wan-Bissaka coming in to form a three in the build-up, almost, using the full-backs in a more creative manner, which, he has done a little bit with Dalot at left-back. I think it is very much a pragmatic solution, but it does give you some different options. That's one that I'm really worried about, and I think that's Ten Hag's biggest problem is the lack of Luke Shaw in this game. I think Luke Shaw has been the key to beating Manchester City in so many occasions in the past, and we really could have done with a sort of balance that he would offer in possession here in a game where I think United will have a bit more of the ball than we might imagine. I think it's going to be a game that will be a bit cagey. I remember the game last season, we actually weren't too bad in the final. It was obviously an incredible moment at the start with Gundogan. And I think not having to worry about him, but Gundogan would have been Erik Ten Hag's biggest problem in this game if he was still there, because this is just like the sort of thing he's made for in the same intangible sense of Raphael Varane. The one I'm worried about is Phil Foden. He seems to, he's on fire at the moment. The way that he just dispatched that goal to win them the league after 2 minutes in the final day, put all the questions out. That guy is like a proper fire extinguisher of a footballer. He just solves all your problems. And I'm really worried about him, especially given that he scored a hat-trick against us and he scored against us, was it twice this season as well?
Yeah, he loves playing against United.
He loves the United game now. He's finally decided he's going to turn up against us. So that's one I'm worried about.
Yeah, you mentioned Luke Shaw, and I'm getting fed up of Luke Shaw a little bit now. It's got I know he's good. He's very good. He's fantastic as a player, but it seems like he's only ever fantastic for half a season. Gareth Southgate has included him in his England squad, and Southgate has previously said he thinks that Luke Shaw, when he's fit, he's probably the best left back in the world, and I don't necessarily disagree with him too much. There obviously are many fantastic left backs out there. Luke Shaw is one of them, but I'm starting to get fed up. He's 28 now. I want to say 27, 28, maybe even older than that.
Yeah,
he might be 29.
He's 27, I think.
Maybe, he's in his mid to late 20s.
Yeah,
I really don't think the trade-off is worth having him at this point. It just starts to infuriate me because I like him as a player, and when he is playing, he's such a good asset for us, and he's very key at kind of holding down that left-hand side, and he's a big key in Marcus Rashford doing well on the left. But it's really starting to jar me how much he isn't available. And we keep saying, we'd love to have Luke Shaw in this game. Like, why don't we? Because he's injured again. And then what you said about Casemiro starting at centre-back, Casemiro makes me want to bash my head against the wall sometimes. So if there's one thing I want to would make sure that it doesn't happen, is Casemiro start at centre-back. Okay. Because he has, as with every game, regardless if he plays in midfield or if he plays in defence or just whatever, he does have periods where he does really well, and then it just all turns to crap at some point. I don't know. Something will seem to happen. He'll he'll dive in as he always does, and he'll miss a challenge, and then suddenly it feels like he tries to overcompensate for it. And then he tries to dive in again, and it happens again, and he gets skipped around by one person, and he's skipped around by another person, and then he's just all over the place. And then you see in every game he's doing the kind of the head turn thing where he'll be done, and he'll be looking like shocked and just like Casemiro, like, it annoys me because I remember when he first signed for United, I wasn't too sold on him, which was at the time I didn't say it too much because obviously he just signed from Real Madrid. He was like 30 years old. So I was like, why have you given him a 5-year deal? I think most people like that. And then the first 10 games he played, he was like he wasn't necessarily getting in the team. When he did play, he didn't look fantastic. But obviously as the season went on, he started to become consistent, really good. He was a big part of the team. He ended up scoring 7 goals for us, scored in the Carabao Cup final.
Yeah.
And then it looks like how I thought it would end up now, in that he's just seemed to have dissipated as a footballer.
I said something, I was at the Arsenal game with my dad the other day, and I said something that I thought was quite insightful, so I'm going to re-quote myself. When we had Casemiro last season, for every 3 actions that he made, 2 were positive, 1 was negative. This season it's flipped, and 2 of the 3 actions are now negative and 1's positive.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So he's still, every now and again he still does something really good, and you're like, oh wow, Casemiro, what a tackle, or what a clever pass that was. He's a very progressive player. He likes forcing the play, and sometimes that does come off. And we saw the goal that Diogo Dalot scored against Brighton was a Casemiro long ball. So many of those have just gone to nobody or gone out for a goal kick or something like that. So we it's obviously mixed, but I think what was the key last season was that he would sometimes do this, and he would do that little look around, and he would dive into tackles, and you're like, what are you doing, Casemiro? But he would, more often than not make up for it, which is why he was one of our best players last season and why he was a contender for player of the season overall. But I think this year that's flipped the other way around, and it's a very noticeable change, and it's meant that, coupled with his legs going, I think that's the reason why this has happened. He's just got on a bit. His legs are gone. He's not somebody who's able to, recover from his mistakes very well either. Once he's dived in, he's isolated, caught in no man's land, and nowhere to go.
He dives in so much.
He does, doesn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't understand it. You know what Casemiro right now reminds me of? It reminds me of the last couple of years with David De Gea.
Yeah.
Where very occasionally David De Gea would have a fantastic game, or he'd make 3 or 4 crucial saves, blah, 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 blah. But then he'd also just make so many stupid errors, like in the FA Cup final last season.
Exactly.
Where he just seemed to be, De Gea was all over the place, and that was not a good game to bow out on. A little bit worried that might happen again. Casemiro, not a great game to bow out from. That having an absolute stinker in the FA Cup final on Saturday, but we don't know, obviously.
I mean, that sounds awful.
I'll go through phases at the moment of 20 minutes where I'm like, it's so over. We're getting absolutely demolished 5-0. And then I'll kind of sit there and go, you know what? No. We have Bruno Fernandes. We have Rasmus Højlund scoring again. Oh, you know what? No, Kobbie Mainoo wasn't playing last year. We have a midfielder like Kobbie Mainoo this time. And then I go, they do have Erling Haaland. oh, wait, no, they have Diaz. And then I'm just back to and I'm like, oh no, but we do have Garnacho, relentless. I'm like, oh, but he's against Kyle Walker. And it's just like, every time I feel like, oh, you know what, there could be something, I just think about Man City and go, oh no, they have a way to get, they have a way to stop us. They have another player who's fantastic and amazing. And then every time I'm like, oh, we got good defenders. I'm like, oh no, they've got Bernardo Silva. Oh no, they've got Kevin De Bruyne, and they've got Haaland's actually not been great recently, as far as I can recall.
No, I mean he's obviously Erling Haaland. The chances are still coming to him, and he's gonna score. And I would not be surprised if he scores.
He's going to score.
Yeah, I'm very sure of that. But I don't know. Interesting what you say about their quality. It's very much how we. Obviously, it's how we deal with that. One of the things I want to say on that front is, you mentioned Ruben Diaz. I do not want to see Rasmus Højlund getting all physical and fighting Ruben Diaz. I'd rather see him running at him and operating in the wide channels. I think that's one of the biggest things for me. What do you think will happen with Marcus Rashford? Do you think he'll start Rashford in this game?
Nah, I don't think he'll start Rashford in this game. Because one thing that Kane's made a video on this on the United District YouTube channel, if you guys want to check this out. Kane's been talking about recently about why Ten Hag was at least somewhat successful against Man City last season, but when we beat them at Old Trafford last season, 2-1.
Yeah.
And it was because of subs. He brought on Garnacho, who had just extra firepower with like 15 minutes to go, and that's what caused Marcus Rashford to, was it Rashford? Yeah, Rashford to score the winning goal at Old Trafford. And in the final, again, it was Garnacho who came on against Man City in the final last season. And that's when we looked really, really good. Garnacho had actually a couple of chances where he might even should have scored. And I think that the roles this season are going to reverse. And I think Garnacho will start. I kind of wish he hadn't started against Brighton. I remember I've been saying this because he scored like 37 games in a row now.
Yeah.
And he's going off with Argentina now. He's in their prelim squad. He's probably going to go to Copa America, and he might even start a few games for them.
Yeah.
But that's by the by. That didn't happen. He started, and I think he will start in the final.
I guess
it's weird for him to start 37 games in a row and then not start in the final.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be Garnacho on the right. I think Rasmus will start up front, and I really hope he does what you said he's going to do. And that's what he's done in the last 2 games. He's took his last 2 goals. He's been about 5 yards back from the centre-back, received the ball from wide, turned, and then ran.
He's brilliant at it, yeah.
And is that, like, he scored the goal against Brighton. He scored like 3 like that now, I think, 2 or 3 like that, where he's received the ball, gone, and he's gone on his right foot and then shot across goal. Or he just obviously shot at goal with his right foot and it's done well. I think he'll start because it would just be weird not to start him in the final. And I think it'll be Ahmad on the right. Really hope it's Ahmad on the right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think Rashford will be on the bench, and he should be on the bench, because as far as Rashford has not had a great season, he's still a fantastic utility to have. And if you chuck him on with 20 minutes to go, especially if you're 2-1 down, or even if it's 2-2, or even if you're 3-2 up or 2-1 up, whatever. I can't imagine us being 3-2 up with 20 minutes to go. But I think it would be a really wise idea for Ten Hag to kind of go back to that blueprint of making sure he saves one of his explosive forwards, especially wide players, to come off the bench. And that obviously shouldn't be Antony, because he's not exactly the world's most explosive forward, but Rashford is. Yeah. On the assumption that Rashford has a good game, Rashford should be benched.
All of this is like making me...
But for a good reason.
Yeah. I agree.
I'm not saying Rashford, he should whatever, and everything, but I'm saying for a good reason, Rashford should be on the bench, because he'd be a fantastic utility to have off the bench.
No, and I think it would be unfair to drop Garnacho, and I think Garnacho's got a really good stride at the moment at left wing as well. And it's working with Ahmad, and I think it would be harsh to drop Ahmad after his few performances now in the run-in. But yeah, you got my brain whirring a little bit. I was thinking about maybe what you could do. He has now actually got a few decent options. He's got Mason Mount back in training, and it looked like he was going to bring Mount into the side before he got injured again, and then again. So maybe he might use Mount in that sort of McTominay role and keep a box of Bruno, Mount, Amrabat, and Mainu. I mean, he might not. He might start McTominay again. He might actually start Højlund, as you say, because Højlund has scored, a couple now. So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if, for the same reason as Rashford being benched, Højlund is benched as an impact. But I mean, if you're Pep Guardiola, I don't know what you're thinking. I mean, hopefully he overthinks it again and does a full Xabi Alonso last night. Did you see with Frimpong basically playing as a sort of right striker instead of a wing back?
Random.
Yeah.
Pep does. I think for this game, I think Pep's just going to be more like, go do your thing, boys. I don't think he's going to overcomplicate this, because I don't think he sees United as a team worth overcomplicating for. He didn't do it. He's not done it in any of the Prem games. He didn't do it against us last season, and obviously they've won pretty much all of those.
Yeah. Well, I've got to say though, if we do, I mean, just thinking about it again, like thinking about these options and how we could like maybe keep things tighter, as we have done sort of against Arsenal especially, and against Brighton to an extent. If we do keep things tighter, I think I'm in my sort of 20-minute spell now. I think we might have a chance, and it's not so over. Because honestly, like,
We're back.
We're so back.
We're so back.
But like genuinely, I think Amrabat has made such a huge. I really want to speak about Amrabat. I think he's made such a huge difference in sort of how keeping things tight, keeping things ticking. He's been quite physical. He's used that to his advantage. Whereas in previous games he's looked like a bit of a big boy just running around, not really knowing where he's going. Seems to have a bit more sort of assurance about him now, and that really encourages me. I think Amrabat could be the difference here if he has a good game. And as you say, we didn't have Mainu last season. We didn't have anyone like Amrabat. It is a very different United team and a quite similar City team. Obviously they've got Josko Gvardiol on fire now as a new player for them. But if we do compare the teams from last season's final, we've got some much different options. And if we can use Onana in the build-up like we have done against Arsenal, which was better, we've obviously got Fernandes to open the door now. A similar approach to against Arsenal, we might have a chance. Honestly, I'm getting excited here.
The approach we made against Arsenal, which was very much tight, compact, keep them wide. We didn't have Bruno for that. Obviously, this time we would have Bruno for that. And I think it could be something Ten Hag falls back on, because Arsenal had most of the possession in that game.
No, we had 55% possession.
Did we have more?
Yeah, we actually out-possessioned them.
It might work. It was obviously if we try to replicate that, but with better players on the pitch. So instead of Casemiro and Johnny Evans at the back, you've got Martinez and I'm playing on the assumption Varane.
Yeah.
And did Amrabat play that? Yeah, Amrabat played in midfield. Would you even potentially consider dropping Casemiro in order to play Amrabat, or play both of them, or?
I don't think there is any basis to start. I mean, other than the sort of intangibles and experience, but based on performances. I mean, he wasn't brilliant against Brighton. But I don't think you can drop Amrabat from this team at the moment. I think he's so important for keeping things tight. I think he said something, this isn't the real Sofyan. You haven't seen the real Sofyan all season. And we haven't, and we're not going to sign him as a result of that. But lately, he's looked more like himself. He's looked like that player that we all saw lighted up the Fiorentina in their European run-in and play really well for Morocco in the World Cup. So maybe if we have Amrabat, we can keep things tight and things look better. I don't think you play Casemiro over Amrabat in this game, and I think if Casemiro does play, it's a centre back. And I know that's what you don't want to see, but
yeah, please no. All right, so just on that topic, let's final bit on the FA Cup. Who plays? So personally, what I would want to see in the starting 11 would be obviously Onana in goal, Wan-Bissaka right back. Centre backs, Varane, Casemiro. What? No. Varane Martinez. He's in my head now, rent free. Varane Martinez, Dalot at left back. I would. Midfield, I don't know.
It's tough, isn't it?
Yeah, because Amrabat, I don't think he's been good, but also I'm gonna stick with. I'm gonna say Casemiro in midfield.
Okay.
And then have other midfield, obviously Kobbie Mainoo, and then I do want Bruno in the 10. He's only played as a 10 against City once, the other two times have been on the right. Yeah. And he scored 2 goals from the right, but I think Bruno in the 10, and then Garnacho left, Højlund up front, Ahmad on the right.
Okay.
What would you change from that?
I mean, I don't know if I would. What I think Ten Hag will do is I think he will try and keep things more compact and have a sort of box. I do think he's going to want to have another midfielder in there, and whether that is, at Ahmad's expense and you put Bruno to the right, or if it's at Højlund's expense and you have Bruno and McTominay as outlets, or even Mount. I mean, I'm saying Mount quite hopefully because I like Mason.
Yeah, I don't think Mount's playing.
Yeah, no.
He's not. I think he's not warranted.
No game time for you this time, mate.
Yeah, no game time for me. I've been injured. I've been doing this all the time, so I can't play. Yeah, I think Mount's playing. He'll come off the bench or something, but Mount's not done anything this season. Unfortunately, Mount hasn't done anything this season to warrant pushing himself in the team in the same way that Amrabat or Ahmad has.
Yeah.
So those players have shown themselves that they could be an option.
Yeah.
Mount, at least in the public eye during the games, hasn't shown himself enough to prove that he's better than any of the other players in that front 5.
Yeah, I think the selection will tell us a lot about how he's planning to approach the game.
For sure.
It could be a case that he goes even more. I genuinely don't know. I don't know what he's going to do. It could be a case that he goes even more defensive and he goes Amrabat and Casemiro with Mainoo and Fernandes further forward, drops one of the forwards out of the lineup and has 2, and plays that sort of Ralf Rangnick tribute 4-2-2-2. So I don't know. Maybe we see a more compact approach. And I think that's what we will. It's not going to be kick and run anymore, which was just a nightmare to watch, especially with Casemiro's form. It was even more chasing around, looking around. I'm hoping that it is going to be more compact, and I'm looking forward to it now on the premise. I think
Ten Hag will be smart to do so.
Yeah.
And so we've spoken about the FA Cup final for 25 minutes now. Normally, obviously you've been here before, we play a little game.
Yeah. And
this time I thought of a new one. I was thinking just about, random quotes. I was watching interviews and I thought, there are some pretty iconic quotes going, about Man United over the period. So I'm going to test you a little bit. I've got 7 quotes here.
Okay.
Of things that have been said by just famous Manchester United. I say famous Manchester United. Most people involved in Manchester United are famous, but just some famous quotes. I just want to see, can you get them?
I think I'm going to do terrible on this. Are they recent or are they like...
There's a mix.
Okay.
So, first one. This is quite harsh, this one. I've never wanted Manchester United to be second to anybody. Only the best in the world only the best would be good enough.
Oh, I'm not sure. It seems like something that Ferguson would say.
This guy was very much a trendsetter. I've thrown you with that.
Oh, a trendsetter. Can you give me any more hint? Like, what sort of time period are you talking about?
Before our time.
Before our time.
Well before our time.
Okay.
He was a founder.
Oh, okay. Are we looking at a bit of Matt Busby here?
Is that your answer?
Oh, no, I'm not sure. Yes.
It is Matt Busby. Well done. I think that's such a hard quote.
You gave me a lot of help there, though.
Yeah.
I don't feel like...
Yeah. Okay, next one. Okay, you should get this one. If you don't get this one, I'll be disappointed in you, Isaac. I always listen to the little boy in me in these situations. When you have to make a harder decision in life, what does he want? That boy was screaming for United.
Oh my gosh.
You've got to know this one.
Yeah, I know. It's a quote that I've heard before, but it's...
Not a manager, I'll give you that.
No, I know. Is it a more contemporary player or?
In our lifetime.
Yeah.
Give you 5 seconds.
This is going to be awful. Neville.
No.
Who is it?
No, I've got one more guess. It's Robin Van Persie, man. You should know
that.
No,
No, that's awful.
That is one of my favourite quotes.
I might have to leave this studio.
I'm fuming at that with you. Next one. The high point of my career was winning the Champions League. No one will ever erase that from my memory in the same way that no one will ever erase the fact that I did it in a Manchester United shirt. There's obviously one clue there. He won the Champions League with United.
Yes. I imagine it's probably a foreign player. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And is it...
Have you got that?
I don't know.
You speak in English.
I don't know. Maybe just the way that it's put together. Think.
Why am I doing the Jaws theme tune? Go on, 5 seconds.
I reckon it's a second Champions League, and I think it is Patrice Evra.
No. One more guess, quick one. Very famous player.
Ronaldo.
Yeah, well done. Cristiano.
I was going to say Ronaldo initially, but I thought that's too
Ronaldo.
obvious. Yeah.
Next one. Chelsea is a top club, and I have many friends there, but you cannot turn down the chance to join Manchester United.
Is that Jose Mourinho?
No.
Okay. Mata.
Juan Mata, well done. Yeah.
No, I remember that
Juan
quote.
Mata.
Yeah, I miss
My
him
guy.
too. Yeah.
Next one. This is a great quote. I'm not at Manchester United to keep everyone happy.
That might be Jose Mourinho.
No, still not Jose Mourinho.
All these quotes could be Mourinho. Somebody who... is it a manager?
No, it's not a manager.
It's not a manager?
He has managed, but not who you'd consider a manager.
Roy Keane.
Roy Keane, well done.
Yeah, nice.
Next one, you've got 2 more. I always planned to retire when I was at the top, and at Manchester United, I have reached the pinnacle of my career.
Ooh. So this is somebody who's joined Manchester United
And
rather
retired.
Yeah, and they've retired at the club. Thinking of the sorts of players that might be.
This is a player that I really wished I watched, or was able to watch.
Yeah.
Because he's quality.
I was watching George Best clips yesterday because it was his birthday.
He was very good.
I wish.
Apparently.
Yeah. No, I really.
I wasn't there for personally.
Yeah, I really wish I could have seen him. Okay, so I just bought myself some more time there tactically. Someone who's retired at United.
Retired. Well, yeah, that's what the quote says.
I'm looking on the wall now at all of our guys to try and see if there's any
Is
hints.
he on there? Yeah, he is.
Is he?
5 seconds. 4,
Eric Cantona.
3. Eric Cantona. Well done.
Yeah, I was going to say Cantona earlier.
This is probably the funniest quote from all of them when I was researching this morning. Sometimes you look in a field and you see a cow and you think it's a better cow than the one you've got in the field.
What?
And it's not Eric Cantona, despite the fact that it very much sounds like something he'd say.
It sounds a bit like that thing that Usyk said about Fury the other night. He said,
that was random.
Yeah. Okay. I have heard this quote before.
Things about cows.
Christ. Oh.
Give you 10 seconds. By the way, if you know any of these at home, in the comments, let me know what you got.
Please don't grill me too harshly. Ooh. Okay.
5 seconds. 5, 4, 3.
Zlatan
2.
Ibrahimovic.
No, one more guess. I'll give you one more. Just tell me right now.
Oof.
Very famous.
Yeah. Rude.
Not Ruud van Nistelrooy. It was Sir Alex Ferguson.
Oh my God, I did know that.
He was saying it in relation to when Wayne Rooney signed a new contract with the club. And I was looking at it, I just thought, weird. Obviously, Sir Alex Ferguson, one of the best managers we've had. And some people have argued that Erik ten Hag is very much down there as not one of the best managers we've had. And there's been a lot of rumours about his
Smooth
future
transition,
and everything.
mate.
And so we're going to talk about, just for the end of this podcast, Mauricio Pochettino. So he's left Chelsea, and it seems like kind of almost on his own terms with the way kind of everything's been described in the press. And the Times the other day came out saying that the reason he left was because he had a sit down with the Chelsea board and said, I want, more control over transfers. I want more say with who's in my team, who's leaving my team, blah, blah, blah. And effectively the Chelsea board just were like, no. The official thing, the thing they said in the Times was they couldn't come to an agreement. So then they'd come to an agreement that it's best they just part ways now.
Yeah.
And apparently he's up for the United job. Obviously there's been flirtations in the media between Poch and United for years. He almost came in instead of Ten Hag. He almost came in instead of Solskjaer, all of that, and he was close to coming in even when he was still at Spurs.
Yeah.
So there's that very iconic photo of him at Old Trafford giving instructions with the Man United banner behind him and everything. But there's an issue with this in that if he wants more control over transfers, Pochettino, and Chelsea have said no, Ineos want a head coach. It seems like they don't want a manager. They want people who do recruitment. So that would be the Jason Wilcox and what's the other guy's name? Dan Ashworth, that's it. Assuming he ever actually joins United. They want those guys in control of the transfers, and they're in control of the recruitment and everything, and the guy that's coaching the team is actually just coaching the team. Yeah. And if he wants more control over transfers, but then he also wants to join United, he's going to have to give that up. This is on the assumption that Ten Hag goes, which, by the way, I don't think is happening. And I'm adamant, I'm about 75% sure that he's not going to go this season, because people in this club still like him. Yeah. At least that's, what I hear. But yeah, it's just, he's available, and me and Flex a few weeks ago talked about the fact that maybe a reason Ten Hag won't go is because there's a lack of genuine high-quality, top-notch managers out there actually available. It's basically just Tuchel, and all the rest of them are kind of less proven. That's what De Zerbi, McKenna, Potter, etc. They're not necessarily proven as top managers. But he's another one that I would put in the category with Tuchel. If he is a top manager, and he's shown it, he's won league titles in France, he was fantastic at Spurs. And even towards the end of the season at Chelsea, they were doing fairly well. They beat United, they beat some other teams. Chelsea's underlying numbers were always pretty good, and I did feel quite sorry for Pochettino in this stint. I think he was much better than anyone else under Todd Bowley's ownership. And I also think that managerial role at the moment that Potter had and that sort of Pochettino inherited of being the new boy for new owners who are ambitious at a top club is potentially the hardest managerial role in world football, because the expectation is just sky high and they want to set the standard really early, and you will be the fall guy for the new owners if it doesn't work out. And that's what happened to Potter, and because it happened so quickly to Potter, it also happened to Pochettino. So I do have a lot of sympathy for him. I think that he actually had something pretty decent cooking at the end at Chelsea. I mean, they obviously got 5 wins in a row, I think. Their underlying numbers were good. They ended up in 5th, which is probably where they deserve to be.
In the same way, you know, Data came and caught United. Our Data was always down around the bottom half of the league, and we fell all the way down at the end. So, you know, Data does win, and I think Pochettino's Data was good. Ineos are very data driven. They're going to look at that and they'll be like, okay, this didn't quite work out at Chelsea. Similar issue to Ten Hag with injuries and what have you. Mismanagement of injuries, mismanagement of load, mismanagement of players, and how they fit into the team in absence of the more consistent starters. Although we never really did know what Chelsea's best 11 is, and we still don't. I do have a lot of sympathy for Pochettino, and I think that Ineos will look at him and think, right, this is a guy that has long-term been linked with United. It's someone that Ineos tried to speak to in the past for the Nice managerial position. It's someone that people at United are very fond of. I think as much as you say, people like Ten Hag, people also like Pochettino. Probably the same people as well. And it was obviously very close between Poch and Ten Hag at the time. It was a bit of a runoff. And I know in the fan base, Ten Hag was by far the most popular choice. And I don't know, look, honestly, I don't want Ineos to listen to any of us ever. I like listen to us about like match days and stadiums, but about the football, please deal with it as professionals, because I think so often fan sentiment has just been like, you know, we want to see instant success, and that's not always the way to do it. I think the fans, though, their opinions on Ten Hag and the manager, even if Ineos's aren't, will be massively affected by what happens in that cup final. If we win the cup final and Ten Hag's sacked, there'll be outrage. I think. I think so. If we imagine the euphoria of beating Manchester City in the FA Cup final, and then they sack the manager. I mean, I think, look, rationally, you'd be able to be like, okay, well, we had an awful season in the league. New owners want their own man. It makes sense. We saw what happened to Louis van Gaal. We played rubbish football all year, and we should have done a lot better with our management of injuries. But, you know, we would have just beaten City to the FA Cup final. It would be incredible if we did that. And I think there would be a bit of, you know, I look at my own, when I put like polls out on my page, and whenever I say things about Ten Hag, like there's people from both sides of the argument coming for me. I'm often quite moderate in my stances in general. But certainly on the Ten Hag one, I'm very much of the school of thought that he is to blame for so many of his own problems. He is the architect of his own downfall. But again, in the same way, I've got sympathy for Pochettino, I've got sympathy for Ten Hag, because it is a very difficult job that he has. I just don't see a way that they can get away with it. I don't think that it would be chaos if they got rid of him after winning the cup. And I think, I don't know, in the same sort of line of thinking of yourself, I think it's very likely that he does stay. But this is the man that they will go for if they can't, because I think he's the outstanding candidate, and it's finally emerged. And that's the biggest problem that Ten Hag has got, is that there now is an outstanding replacement for him.
I really don't think people are going to be as outraged as you think if Ten Hag goes and we win the final. Because in the same way that Van Gaal was sacked after the FA Cup final that he won,
yeah,
and admittedly it was Crystal Palace versus Manchester City, like, you know, there's different calibre of different levels of teams you're playing against, but it was our first trophy in 3-4 years.
Yeah.
When Louis van Gaal won the FA Cup. But I think people, when he got sacked, people were kind of just like, oh, that's a bit peak on him, but kind of fair enough. Because remember, it was like, overall, people were bored of the football, and there was so many results when we just weren't playing well. And at the same time now, there's so many results where we're not playing well, there's loads of injuries, we're 8th in the league, worst ever finish, all that. I feel like if Ten Hag gets sacked, it'll be a bit of a case of people are going to go, maybe not fair on him to do it after that specific moment, but ultimately what they're doing is they're not sacking him after winning the FA Cup, they're sacking him after getting knocked out of the Champions League in the group stage, getting knocked out in the Carabao Cup in October or November, finishing 8th in the Premier League, and then somehow winning an FA Cup.
I do think the difference here is that United now, compared to United then, are very different propositions, obviously with new owners, whatever. But then we were having managers set the game model. Like, rather than Jason Wilcox or someone like him setting a game model, it was completely based on Van Gaal. And Van Gaal's football was not Manchester United football. As much as, like, I always go to, whenever you're at Old Trafford, you hear people groan when we pass the ball backwards, which makes sense. But, you know, people want to see exciting football, and that's part of the club's DNA. But possession football is never going to work here, and I think that was one of the main reasons why Van Gaal had to go, is because that style of football just didn't align with the club, and we were literally basing our style of football off the manager, right? I think the difference here now is that if we have someone set in a game model, we're not sacking Ten Hag doesn't necessarily like get rid of all of his ideas, and keeping him doesn't necessarily keep all of his ideas. I think that the idea is more from the club itself. So I do think it's slightly different in that sense, and our squad is actually pretty good. Like this might be an unpopular opinion, but I think United's team, when it's available, is good, and our squad has been tested to the absolute limit this season, which is why we came 8th. But I do think we've got some quality there now, which we just didn't have with Van Gaal. And we had some good players. We didn't have any great players. I think now we've got, like, Martinez is a great technician. Fernandes is brilliant. Hoyland's a great young talent. Garnacho, Mainu, very, very promising. Ahmad, very promising. I think there's something there which makes it much more different to then. Then it was like Martial was a shining light and Herrera played well, and you had Rashford coming through. But then you had like Fosu Mensah and Schneiderlin.
What boy?
Yeah. We just had like failed signings.
Actually, he wasn't even in the squad for the final.
Yeah. It's a very different proposition now,
It's true, but I still don't think that... I think there'll be more outrage within the club than outside it. I say outrage, more like kind of people not too happy with Ten Hag going inside the club than they would actually be outside it. And I think people would move on very quickly from it. It's not like when Chelsea got rid of Tuchel.
Yeah.
And the majority of Chelsea fans were actually kind of fuming because obviously he just won the Champions League with them. That's a different calibre of trophy, and they were doing well. They were playing pretty well.
Yeah.
And then they got rid of Tuchel to bring in Potter, and then Potter didn't really work out. And then they then brought in Lampard for a couple of games, and then brought in Pochettino. That's the kind of situation where I would expect fans to actually react poorly to someone being sacked because it was so out of the blue and random.
Yeah, that's fair.
Whereas with this one, it's not like it's something that people can't see coming.
Yeah.
Because of just how, not even average, below average United have been in the other competitions. And yes, winning an FA Cup is winning the FA Cup, fantastic, great. It's another trophy, 2 trophies in 2 seasons. But it just doesn't... Like, people would get over it because people would see that it would be part of a grander plan.
Yeah.
At Chelsea, when they sacked Tuchel, it wasn't necessarily part of a grander plan. It was the new owners trying to, establish their own mark, going, this was the guy that was there when we came in. No, we're going to bring in someone new to show that this is us, and this is all us, and our fingerprints are now all over this. Obviously, then backfired. But with the other one, Ten Hag would be being sacked, and that would be a decision that Ineos will have been making, and they would have arrived at a conclusion for after 3, 4, 5 months of deliberation and thinking.
Yeah.
And so if it does get sacked, it's a very calculated decision. And I think that'll be more respected than something like when Tuchel was sacked, which feels like it wasn't as calculated. That was more just the owner was going, we have to do something to establish authority, so we're going to do that.
Yeah.
With that being said, don't think Ten Hag's going, but I think they'll let him see out his contract and then just bring in a new manager.
I mean, I think that would make sense. I think one of the most important things to remember about Tuchel as well was that he did fall out with, he had a very good relationship with Petr Cech and Marina. I can never say her surname, Gracheskova or whatever it is. Sorry, Marina. But they got on really well. They had a good sort of structure there that worked with Abramovich's thing, and then that obviously got dismantled immediately. Ten Hag, on the other hand, has expressed his desire to work with Wilcox and Ashworth, and has spoken about the conversations that he's had with Wilcox. And from what you hear about Wilcox, inside, outside, everyone seems to get on with him really well. He seems like a really shrewd operator who's done quite a lot already. So, the fact that Ten Hag is eager to work with him and has expressly said that is important, and that is a key difference from Chelsea. But again, I think that the biggest difference here is that there is an outstanding alternative. And I think Pochettino is somebody that I have always felt, and I'm sure you might have as well, that this guy is destined to be Man United manager one day. Those pictures are so like...
Yeah, you're right. In the same way that Bale was destined to play for Man United.
Oh my God,
it gives me that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, one of the things, it's like, it just looks like it's going to happen, and then it just doesn't.
Bale might be the most Manchester United player to
that never played for Manchester United, yeah. So to wrap up, I'm going to say... we're going to do 2 predictions. 1, prediction of the game, and then 2, the prediction of does then Ten Hag go.
Okay. Wow.
So, first of all, prediction, game. you know, what's going to happen? Is it 90 minutes? Is it 120 minutes? Is it pens? What's the score going to be? How's the game going to pan out?
Oh, it's just going to be really painful because I'm going to say we're going to lose, but... No, I mean, like, the little boy inside of me, to reference one of those quotes from earlier.
Robin Van Persie's quote.
Robin Van Persie's quote.
There you go.
What a quote it was. I can see something magical happening. I truly can, because I do think we can keep it compact. We can. We're not going to approach this like a lower league club, in that we're not going to like turn up and let them keep all the ball. We're going to want to be like, we're going to have a plan to work possession ourselves. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, there's like a, I don't know, 20% part of me that thinks that there's a way that we win 1-0 and just keep it tight. But then they've got Erling Haaland and Phil Foden. I can equally see us losing 3-0. Like, genuinely, and I can see us not being competitive, and I think I can see Ten Hag getting sacked after. It's not going to, like, Ineos are not idiots. They're not going to define their entire and Ten Hag plan off the final. There's much more that's going to go into it than that. But I can see it just being disgraceful. I really can, and that pains me to say. But then there is part of me that I don't know. I've got no idea, and I don't want to.
What's your okay? Remove yourself from the situation. Remove yourself from the fact that you're going to the game.
Always the hardest thing to do.
If you're there and you're going, okay, what do I think is going to happen? I'll go first if you want.
Please.
Right. So, I think what's going to happen is it's going to be a fantastic, edgy, tight but great game up until 70 minutes, and then we're just going to collapse.
Okay.
It'll be 70 minutes of hard work. You know, we might score. They might score. I don't think we'll be losing by 70 minutes. But then I think we'll be losing by 2 goals by the full time whistle. I don't see it going to 120 minutes. If it goes to 120 minutes, I will stand in my living room and I will applaud the players, because that is fair play if they take it to 120 minutes.
Yeah.
Penalties, almost no chance. Have we done a penalty shootout this season?
Yeah, we have. We did. Semi-final.
Oh, yeah, Coventry. Oh,
that was horrible. I mean, no one remembers that.
No. I think it'll be 90 minutes. It'll be like 3-1, but it'll be competitive until 70, and then Phil Foden's going to be his admittedly magical self.
Yeah.
And I think he'll run the show, get man of the match to complement his Player of the Season award.
Wow. I mean, I want to be like a delusional content creator and say we're going to win. Like, I genuinely do. I want to be like, yeah, 1-0, we've got it. I do see what you mean, and I think if we do, it really does depend on what team he picks. And if he does go with a compact midfield and he picks 4 midfielders and kind of does what we were talking about earlier, or he uses Amad and Garnacho effectively to hold the width and sustain possession, I think we can manage the game well and get through, with not conceding too many chances. If he does what he's done in the past and goes, right, we're gonna play high pressing and we're gonna give it to them, we're gonna go toe to toe with them in their own game, given that we've got some of our players back, and gets overexcited or anything like that, I think we'll get ourselves a lesson taught and we'll lose heavily. Keep it compact, play Amrabat, please. And I think we'll do it. We'll do a decent job, and we'll hang in there for 90. And I don't want to.
And I'll be winning. Yes,
I don't want to say which way it's going to go, but I think let's.
Come on, no.
Yeah, we're going to win the FA Cup.
We're winning the FA Cup.
Yeah.
And what's the score?
1-0.
1-0. You think we're keeping a clean sheet?
1-0. It's going to be a horrible game.
I think the one thing that's definitely happening is we're conceding. But each to their own. If you think 1-0, we're going to put in a grueling. Is it grueling the right word? Or just
it's going to be a horrible game.
Stick in there. It's going to be a horrible game. We're going to 1-0 win on the break. Amad Diallo, over Ortega or whatever. He's going to, yeah.
I'm in
4-0 win.
dreamland.
You know what? No, scratch everything you said. 4-0 win. Amad brace. Højlund scoring. And
Dalot from
Bruno
40
as well.
yards.
Bruno penalty.
Oh yeah, we'll have that. Yeah.
Dalot man of the match. 3 assists. Brilliant. And then I'm going to have the best day of my life. But thank you so much for coming on, Isaac. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, mate. Yeah.
For those of last week who watched the entirety of the episode, thank you very much for commenting the word pineapple. Appreciate it. Good fun. I'm going to give you another one this week. If you've made it all the way to the end of this episode, all the way to the 48 minutes so far that we've been filming, can you comment the word... What word? Old Trafford. Just comment Old Trafford. No context or anything. Old Trafford in the comments. And apart from that, remember to listen on Spotify or Apple Music. Make sure to save it on your various different apps. Turn notifications on if you want the latest news. Follow United District on Twitter and Instagram, everything. Follow Isaac if you want as well. United Cloud on Twitter and Instagram. And anywhere else? TikTok?
I wish. No.
No, not TikTok.
Yeah.
So Twitter and Instagram, United Cloud. Apart from that, we'll see you next week.